Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. This is Rupjeet. So I am uploading biology lectures absolutely free of cost. So please like, share and subscribe to my channel for more updates. So in our previous lecture, that is life processes part 1, we have already discussed about what do we actually mean by this life processes that we have already discussed in our previous lecture. So now what we are going to do is that we have to look more deeper into the chapter, and I'll be covering each and every point from your NCERT textbook. So the introduction part, we have already covered this thing in our previous lecture in the form of short notes. I have explained you everything. Maybe it was easier for you to understand from the short notes. So let us continue now. So let us look at a few questions given in text. Why diffusion is insufficient to meet the oxygen requirements of multicellular organisms? So as we know, if I explain, in case of unicellular organisms, try to understand, in case of unicellular organisms, for example, if you talk about amoeba, which is a protozoa basically. For example, in case of amoeba, in case of any unicellular organism, diffusion is sufficient for oxygen requirement. The unicellular organisms can get their oxygen with the help of diffusion itself. However, in case of multicellular organisms, this diffusion is not sufficient. So basically, what is diffusion? Diffusion is that, for example, if you consider it to be amoeba, for example, it is amoeba. It is the nucleus, okay. And in the outside environment, there are oxygen molecules. And inside amoeba, inside the body of amoeba, due to respiration, there are abundant carbon dioxide. Inside the cytoplasm of the amoeba cell, there are abundant carbon dioxide and less oxygen. But in the outside environment, there is huge amount of oxygen. So, diffusion means that any molecule or gases will transfer from its high concentration and reach to its low concentration. So, oxygen, due to its high concentration in the outer environment, will diffuse inside the cell. On the other hand, carbon dioxide, it will diffuse outside. This carbon dioxide, it will basically diffuse outside. Carbon dioxide, it will diffuse outside from the amoeba, since it is high concentration inside amoeba. On the other hand, this oxygen, it will diffuse into the amoeba cell. In this way, diffusion itself is sufficient to meet the oxygen requirements of unicellular organisms. However, in case of multicellular organisms, for example, human beings, we need certain systems. For example, in human beings, if you talk about human beings, we have the respiratory system. Respiratory system in case of human beings is available. This respiratory system, we have to breathe the oxygen, and the oxygen reaches into our lungs, and the diffusion starts from our alveoli, about which we will be studying in our respiration topic. Now, what criteria do we decide whether an organism is alive or not? Next question. Okay. So, to decide whether something is alive or not, we need to look at the presence of life processes. Presence of the essential life processes. Presence of life processes decides whether something is alive or not. That is, if there is any living thing, then there will be certain metabolic reactions occurring in it, as I have already discussed with you in our previous lectures. So the presence of life processes will decide whether an organism is alive or not. Now let us move into our next question. What are the outside raw materials used by an organism? What raw material should be used by an organism? Can you name? Yes, it is food. You are right. It is food. We have to take food. We have to eat food for our energy requirement. Food is the raw material for organisms. Specifically glucose. Which is the simplest form of carbohydrate. Moreover, we need water. Most of the heterotrophic animals need oxygen, wherever green plants need carbon dioxide. So these are basically the raw materials which are used by various organisms. This I have already explained to you. Now let us move into our next question. So the next question says that what processes would you consider essential for maintaining life? Again, what processes are essential for maintaining life? Again, these are life processes, nothing but life processes. You talk about sensitivity, that is consciousness, that is sensitivity. Sensitivity. Then you can talk about respiration. These are few life processes, and other life processes are also there. For example, nutrition. These are certain life processes which are essential for maintaining life. Now we are moving on to our next topic, that is nutrition. We have to discuss nutrition in a great detail. What is basically nutrition? What do we understand by nutrition? So, nutrition. When we walk or ride a bicycle, we are using up energy. I have already told you that we receive energy through respiration. Respiration provides us energy in the form of ATP, in the mitochondria. What is ATP? It is adenosine triphosphate molecule. Adenosine triphosphate molecule. It is like this. There is an ADP molecule, that is adenosine diphosphate, and to this molecule an inorganic phosphate is attached, and this together is known as the ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate molecule. You will be studying about it more in your higher classes. So what it is said over here, even if we don't do any sort of apparent activity, even when we are not doing any apparent activity, energy is still needed to maintain a state of order in our body. So what this statement actually means, for example, we are sleeping. When we are sleeping, do you think that we need energy for sleeping? Do you think we need energy for sleeping? What do you think? Yes, energy is required, because when we sleep, at the same time, when we are sleeping, at the same time we are breathing. We are performing our various life processes, that is respiration, nutrition and all, digestion and all. At the same time we are performing various life processes. So apparently when we are sleeping, we don't seem to do any sort of work, but actually we are performing various life processes to sustain our life even when we are sleeping. So energy is vital. It is universal. So energy is required even when we are sleeping. Very, very important question. You may have question relating to this concept in your school exams as well. So remember what I say. Now we move on to Next thing, what is said here? We also need materials from outside in order to grow, develop, synthesize protein and other substances in our body. Okay, synthesis of proteins and other substances for growth and development, we need energy, as I have already told you. Since it is NCERT highlight series, so I am discussing each and every point from your NCERT textbook. Now, how do the living things get their food? How do the living things get their food? The process through which living organisms take their food into their body and slowly digest it into smaller compounds. This entire process is known as nutrition. That is what is mentioned in the entire paragraph. So for this nutrition process, we need certain enzymes. So what are enzymes? Enzymes are nothing but biocatalysts. For digestion, for nutrition purposes, we need certain enzymes in our body which are biocatalysts. So for understanding the concept of enzymes, we need to understand what do we actually mean by catalysts. What do we actually mean by catalysts? That we need to understand one by one. So catalyst, when we say catalyst, it is anything that increases the rate of reaction. That is, catalyst has the ability to catalysts have the ability to increase the rate, that is, increase the speed or the rate. Generally, catalysts increase the speed or rate of a particular reaction. These are catalysts. So biocatalysts, that is found in living organisms, because bio refers to living things. So biocatalysts are found in living organisms, and these biocatalysts are referred to as enzymes. For various metabolic processes, respiration, digestion and all, we need certain enzymes which increase the speed, because we need energy every now and then. If our food is digested slowly, then we will get energy slowly. Then all our daily work will be hampered. So to ensure the uninterrupted continuation of our life processes, we need a continuous supply of energy. And for the continuous supply of energy, we need to increase the speed of our metabolic reactions. For example, we need to increase the speed of our respiration to get the continuous supply of energy. For this purpose, enzymes are used. Moreover, for example, in case of digestion, for example, I am telling in digestion of carbohydrates, for example, digestion of carbohydrates starts in the mouth in living organisms. In humans. So digestion of carbohydrates starts in the mouth with the presence of an enzyme called salivary amylase. Salivary amylase. This salivary amylase, it breaks down starch. Starch is complex carbohydrate. In the presence of this salivary amylase, the starch breaks down into simpler maltose, which is a disaccharide. It is made up of two molecules, that is glucose plus glucose. Two glucose molecules together form a maltose. It is broken down into simpler molecules in the mouth with the help of an enzyme called salivary amylase. So we need certain enzymes both in animals as well as in the plants, both in heterotrophs as well as in the autotrophs, to increase the speed of the various life processes, to increase the speed of the various metabolic reactions occurring within the body. So I think it is clear to you what is the significance of enzymes, about which I have already discussed. Now, Autotrophic nutrition. Our lecture basically it starts from here, because today's lecture is basically meant for what is autotrophic nutrition basically. For that reason, we need to understand, for that purpose, at first we need to understand what is meant by autotrophs. Autotrophs are those organisms. Autotrophs are those organisms which make their own food. Make their own food. For example, green plants. Most of the green plants can make their own food with the help of carbon dioxide. Then water. In the presence of sunlight, they can make their own food, which is glucose. We will be studying about this reaction, which is known as photosynthesis, in after some time. Now, autotrophic nutrition is the type of nutrition which is found basically in the autotrophs. Is that clear to you? Now we are reading one by one each and every sentences. So for performance of the photosynthesis, which is the method of autotrophic nutrition in the plants, green plants basically, carbon and energy requirements of the autotrophic organism are fulfilled by photosynthesis, as I have already discussed to you. So it is the process by which autotrophs take in substances from the outside and convert them into stored forms of energy. Very, 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 very important. So in the exam, you will have questions relating to this concept. What is photosynthesis? The answer is given clearly in your NCERT. What do you mean by photosynthesis basically? It is the process by which autotrophs take in substances from the outside and convert them into stored forms of energy. These stored forms of energy, it is starch. It is basically starch. As I have already discussed, during photosynthesis, glucose is produced. So this glucose, it is stored in the form of starch in autotrophs, that is in plants. This glucose, it is stored in the form of starch in the plants, which is a complex carbohydrate. And here it is starch. Stored forms of energy means starch. So in the presence of carbon dioxide, yes, in the presence of carbon dioxide, then water, then chlorophyll, yes, chlorophyll is a must, in the presence of sunlight also. So these carbohydrates are utilized for providing energy to the plant. Now this glycogen, it is not a part of autotrophic nutrition. This glycogen, it is the stored energy. It is the stored energy in heterotrophs. In case of human beings, basically, in case of any heterotrophs, the stored energy is glycogen. But glycogen is not stored form of energy. It is not a stored form of energy in plants, because in autotrophs, starch is the stored form of energy, which I have already discussed. Now this is the reaction for photosynthesis, which is very, very important. You can see the reaction is already balanced in front of you. 6 molecules of carbon dioxide, it reacts with 12 molecules of water to liberate glucose, then oxygen and water. This oxygen and water are byproducts. In case of photosynthesis, these are byproducts in the plant, and this oxygen, it is liberated through the stomata. Afterwards, it is released. Oxygen is released from the stomata during photosynthesis, and carbon dioxide is absorbed. This carbon dioxide is absorbed from the stomata during photosynthesis. In the presence of chlorophyll and sunlight, this photosynthesis reaction is carried out. So during this, it is photosynthesis. What is actually achieved by the plants? The plants get glucose, which is very, very important. It provides the plant energy. During respiration, the plants get energy from glucose. So here a concept should be clear to you that plants prepare glucose with the help of photosynthesis. So a concept needs to be mentioned here that with the help of photosynthesis, plants can make glucose. Glucose is prepared and it is stored in the form of starch. Afterwards, during respiration, this glucose is broken down. This glucose is broken down to release energy in the plants during respiration. Plants also perform respiration because they also need energy like us. So they need to break this glucose in the break glucose in the mitochondria to release energy, to get energy during this respiration process. Is that clear to you? Now we need to understand broadly about this photosynthesis. That is the autotrophic nutrition process. So various steps are involved in this photosynthesis process. These are the 3 steps which are very, very important for your school examinations. What happens actually during photosynthesis? Absorption of light energy by chlorophyll takes place. That is sunlight, it is absorbed. The sunlight is basically absorbed during photosynthesis. Now, conversion of light energy into chemical energy and splitting of water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen. So the light energy, that is sunlight, Now, this sunlight, it is basically converted into chemical energy. Light energy, that is sunlight, and chemical energy, it refers to ATP molecules, adenosine triphosphate, about which I have already discussed with you, and splitting of water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen. You can see the number of water molecules here has actually reduced. Earlier there was 2 molecules of water and later on it became 6 molecules of water. That is, some water molecules are actually decreasing, right? Basically what happens during photosynthesis, this water molecule, during photosynthesis actually what happens, this water molecule, it actually splits into hydrogen and oxygen. The water molecule is actually splitting into hydrogen and oxygen. Let us balance. Here it is 2 and here it will be 2. So the equation is balanced. So water molecules are splitting into hydrogen and oxygen in case of photosynthesis, and this reaction is known as photolysis of water. Photolysis of water, which occurs during the light reaction of photosynthesis, about which you will be studying in your higher classes. Now finally, the last and final step is reduction of carbon dioxide into carbohydrates. That is, carbon dioxide, it is actually reduced. This carbon dioxide, it is actually reduced into carbohydrate, that is glucose. Carbon dioxide is the source of glucose. This carbon dioxide is reduced to form glucose. What is reduction? Addition of hydrogen by convention, as we know. Addition of hydrogen is called reduction. So this carbon dioxide molecule is actually reduced to form the glucose, is actually reduced to form the glucose. So these are the three important steps of photosynthesis about which we have discussed. If you have any doubt regarding photosynthesis, any doubt regarding respiration or for autotrophic nutrition, please ask in the comment section below. So these steps, another important thing is that now these steps do not occur one after one immediately. These steps need not take place one after the other immediately. That is, there can be a time span also. Simultaneously one after another will, it is not necessary that it will have to occur one after another. There is also an example. I am discussing it one by one to you so that your concepts should be crystal clear. For example, in case of desert plants, please note, desert plants are also known as xerophytic plants. Desert plants are also known as xerophytic plants. Desert plants take carbon dioxide at night and prepare an intermediate which is acted upon by energy absorbed by the chlorophyll during the day. Very, very important for your school examination. So what happens? These desert plants, they have to take carbon dioxide at night, because you know, in the desert, basically, if I explain you, let me open a blank slide for you, then it will be easier for you to understand. So what happens basically in the desert? What happens? Let me explain to you. In the desert, there is less amount of water, very, very less amount of water. So the leaves of various, so in the various plants, for example, you talk about this sort of plants, cactus. For example, you talk about cactus. So there are stomata present at the stem of the cactus. So these stomata, these are closed during the day, because if these are open during the day, then the plants will lose water in the form of transpiration. In the form of transpiration, the plants will lose water if the stomata are kept open. But fortunately, in the desert plants, their adaptation is in such a way that in the plants during daytime, the stomata are closed, hence water is conserved. Water is not lost from the desert plants because the stomata is actually closed. So what happens during the night? At the night, when transpiration does not occur due to the absence of sunlight, at night the stomata are opened. At night the stomata opens in the desert plants. See, the stomata is opening. So at night the desert plants achieve carbon dioxide. The desert plants achieve carbon dioxide at night and convert the carbon dioxide into an intermediate compound. And the carbon dioxide is converted into an intermediate compound. This carbon dioxide is basically converted into an intermediate compound, and when it is day, and this intermediate compound is stored until and unless day comes. So during the day, when sunlight is available, this intermediate compound is acted upon by the sunlight, and then photosynthesis starts. And during the day, photosynthesis starts. This is the adaptation which the desert plants perform to reduce loss of water during transpiration. Now I think your concepts are clear. Now let us move into our next discussion part. Yes. Now you will find here cross section of a leaf. Basically, this leaves are known as kitchen of the plant. Leaves are known as kitchen kitchen of plant. Because plants make their food through photosynthesis, majority of the photosynthesis occurs in the leaf, because leaf contains mesophyll tissue. Because leaves, they contain what? They contain certain cells known as mesophyll cells. Leaves contain mesophyll cells. These mesophyll cells contain chlorophyll. These mesophyll cells contain chlorophyll, which is required for the performance of photosynthesis in the leaves. So this is the cross section of a leaf. You have taken a leaf over here. So this is the midrib. This is the midrib, which is actually going through the middle of the leaf. This is actually the midrib, and these are the veins of the leaf through which various transportation of glucose and sucrose takes in and out from the leaf. This is the vein, this is the midrib, through which transportation of glucose and sucrose, such substances occur. Last but not the least, this is the lamina or the leaf blade, that is the flat surface of the leaf. I can show you here, just wait a minute. This flat surface of the leaf, here, can you see this flat surface of the leaf? This entire flat surface of the leaf is known as, it is known as lamina. This entire flat surface of the leaf is known as the lamina. This lamina is also known as leaf blade. This lamina is also known as leaf blade. Very, very important for your examinations. So inside the midrib, you will find phloem and xylem. These are the vascular bundles. Inside the midrib, you will find phloem and xylem. Inside the midrib, you will find various xylem and phloem. Phloem, it transports food in the form of sucrose. Understand? Phloem transports food in the form of sucrose. On the other hand, xylem, it transports water and inorganic minerals dissolved in the water. The xylem, it transports water and inorganic minerals within the plant body. So I hope it is clear to you. Now we are moving on to the cross section of the leaf in more microscopic view. This is the cross section of a leaf. Here you will find a waxy cuticle. Another important point, cuticle is a waxy substance. Cuticle is absent in roots. Very, very important. This cuticle, it is absent in roots. Okay. Now we are talking about leaves basically. So the upper surface of the leaf, it contains a cuticle. There is also the upper epidermis in the leaves. Here you will find chloroplasts, which contain chlorophyll. Chloroplasts contain chlorophyll. They contain chlorophyll, which performs photosynthesis. And these cells which contain chloroplasts, are known as mesophyll cells. Okay, let me change the color. It will be easier for you to understand. These cells which have chloroplasts, within which chlorophyll is present, these cells are known as mesophyll cells, as I have already discussed earlier. Mesophyll cells, very, very important for your knowledge. I am telling these things. These mesophyll cells present in the leaves, they contain chloroplasts, which in turn contain chlorophyll. There are also air spaces. Let me rub it for your understanding. Okay. They also contain air spaces. These are air spaces. Now it is guard cell. And this tiny pore which you are seeing, it is the stomata. Stoma. Stoma. It is a stoma. Singular stoma. Whenever it is singular, it will be stoma, and whenever it is plural, it will be stomata. Note this thing. Majority of the students don't know this, but I am telling you. This stomata, it is lined by guard cells. Certain bean-shaped cells are surrounding the stoma. So the cells which are surrounding the stomata are known as guard cells. Guard cells also contain chloroplasts. Guard cells also contain chloroplasts. Basically, the opening and closing of the stomata is performed by guard cells, because the plants have to get carbon dioxide through the stomata. The plant releases oxygen through the stomata. The plant releases excess water in the form of transpiration through the stomata. So this opening and closing of the stomata, this rhythmical opening and closing of the stomata is performed with the help of guard. So this is the diagram of opened and closed stomatal pore. So these are the guard cells which are surrounding the stomatal pore. The cells which are surrounding the stomata or the stoma are referred to as guard cells. So here you can find a very important statement for your school examinations. The guard cells swell when water flows into them, causing the stomatal pore to open. The pores closes when the guard cells shrink. Very important statement. Basically, when these guard cells swell, then what happens? Stoma, singular it is known as stoma opens, as it is shown here. Water enters into the guard cells, as a result of which the guard cells, they swell, causing the stomatal pore to open. At the same time, these guard cells shrink. When the guard cells shrink, when water is expelled out from the guard cells, when water is removed from the guard cells, gradually the guard cells, what happens? They shrink. And when the guard cells shrinks, stoma closes. Here in the entire paragraph, this thing is mentioned clearly. So opening and closing of the stomatal pore is a function of the guard cells. So here is a very important question you can find. What is the function of guard cells? Basically, opening and closing of the stomata is a function of guard cells, which I have already discussed with you. So we are at the end of the autotrophic nutrition concepts. So for autotrophs to meet their energy requirements, they perform photosynthesis, as we all have already discussed. So whenever photosynthesis is performed, you need certain raw materials. You need certain raw materials for photosynthesis. What are these raw materials? These are water, then nitrogen, then phosphorus, iron, magnesium. For the performance of photosynthesis, various micronutrients which are found in lesser quantity, various macronutrients which are found in more quantity, along with water. These are abundantly absorbed from the soil. These are absorbed from the soil by the plants. Plants absorb these things from the soil. With the help of their roots. Now in your NCERT, nitrogen, the concept of nitrogen is very well highlighted. So nitrogen, it is an essential element used in the synthesis of proteins and other compounds. Nitrogen is used in the synthesis of proteins. That is, proteins are produced with the help of nitrogen, that is N2 molecule. Nitrogen helps in the synthesis of proteins and other compounds. So this nitrogen is taken from the soil. Nitrogen is taken from the soil by the plants in the form of nitrates, and nitrites in the form of nitrates. The chemical formula for nitrates and nitrites, do you know? NO3 minus, it is nitrates. NO2 minus, it is nitrites. In the form of nitrates and nitrites, nitrogen is absorbed from the soil by the plants. It is also taken up as organic compounds which are prepared. Nitrogen is also taken in the form of certain organic compounds which are prepared by bacteria. These bacteria, for example, rhizobium, and certain blue-green algae are also there. For example, the you talk about nostoc, anabina. So this rhizobium, nostoc, anabina, what they do, they fix atmospheric nitrogen and convert them into certain organic compounds which can be easily absorbed by the different plants. So in this lecture we have discussed what autotrophic nutrition is. A very crisp, concise concept we have discussed in our lecture. So in the next lecture we will be discussing about heterotrophic mode of nutrition. We will be discussing about heterotrophic mode of nutrition in a great detail in the form of diagrams, flowcharts in our upcoming lecture. So please, I have dedicated so much to this thing, so please subscribe to my channel. So that I get motivated to upload more and more educational videos absolutely free of cost for you. Please like my video so that I get motivated to make more and more videos absolutely free of cost. And last but not the least, share my videos to your friends so that they can ace in their exams. Thank you so much.